last two dots before the end of the parak. Wait, you were here last night, right?
Yeah.
So the last two dots for the end of the parak is not that far. No.
Oh.
The first two dots on the page. I didn't realize there was more than one. Okay. Ein might be Masakelim. All right, that's about 15 lines down or so. Maybe it's just 18 lines. You have it? They might be Masakelim. You can't dunk the kelim on Shabbos, of course. So Maseisim Kelim Gdolim. Our mission is talking about big kelim. Our kelim Ktani, but small kelim. Mari Malay Madbilan. You can do it a little bit of a ruse and toy with them even on Shabbos. How so? Tana Rabbi Yeshua said, "Mamali Odem b'kli tamei." A person can fill up water with kli tamei min habor, from a bore of water. Umarim, and he does haramo matbil. He says, "Hey, I was just filling up water. You mean the kli got tore as a result? Oh boy, what a remarkable coincidence." So that's a ruse, right? So that ruse works on Shabbos, right? Tani nafal doli atocha bor. Similarly, if your bucket falls into the bor, naflu kelo tocha bor, your other vessels fall into the bor. Mari malay matpilan. Same idea. You can pull them out and say, "Oh, surprise! It got toivel." Train amori. There are two amorim. Chadamar became shiur b'avatu. One said it's even true when kelim are tamei tuma daraisa, which is it became tamei with an avatuma. The Choron Amar, it only became shiur v'ladatum. It's only with came which became tamei with tamei beverages, which are only tamei derabanan, of course, right? If vladatuma is a rishon latuma is only tamei derabanan. So that's only in that case can you be toivel on Shabbos even with the ruse. Mesiv man damar. So the one is a typo here. Should be mesiv man damar bivlad hatuma, man damar ba'av hatuma. The one who said that that only becomes tamei d'Rabbanan, as according to the opinion that holds that even it becomes tamei tuma d'oraisa. So he says afilu bechol, even on a weekday. What good does this tefillah do? For ton harav shemesh. You have to wait till nightfall, right? Because any keli which came tamei ba'avatumah has to wait till nightfall. So therefore, what good does this tefillah do? What are you accomplishing with it? Amarle, so he said, "Barotza lishtamish ben b'chulim b'tara." We're talking about a case where ena chanami to use it for truma. Of course, you cannot use it, but you can use it to do chulin b'tara. In other words, he's makbid on doing chulin b'tara, and therefore he's toiveling, even though it won't become fully Torah till that evening. That's sufficient for his purposes. Now, there's an important byproduct of this here, which is that really he's saying something more significant, which is that Imam Damar says you toivel on Tumah D'Oraisa, it's dafkun Tumah D'Oraisa. Because by Tumah D'Oraisa it does become really tar on Shabbos. It's only an enhancement of the status of the vessel so that you can use it now with your chulin, and your chulin won't become as tamei as a result. But it's really not bona fide Torah until nightfall. So it's less of a tikkun keli than toiveling a kli which became tamei d'Rabbanan, right? Because the kli which became tamei d'Rabbanan will become tar after you toivel it completely. Whereas this one, which is tamei tuma d'Oraisa, since it won't become fully tar till that evening, so therefore it's less of a tikkun. Ironically, it's less of a tikkun to toivel it on Shabbos. Okay, that comes out to be a very interesting distinction.
I have to plead ignorance. I was unaware that the keli, when it comes tummy, requires wait until nightfall.
Neither was I. I plead ignorance too. So if you plead ignorance and I plead ignorance, so we can all be ignorant. Okay? Right.
Which one are we totaling that you have to wait till nightfall?
All vessels. It seems all vessels become tummy require nightfall.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it says here.
How about that? Well, like three of us.
It must be Miss Kayla.
Yeah, that's right.
Not to say I have this fantastic memory, but the matter is, I don't remember that.
I don't remember either.
I don't know. Anyway, says more Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Zir, Shem, Rabbi Chib, Rashi. Isha pikachas. We have this in the Bavli. A woman who's smart and wants to tamp down the dirt on her floor. She's not allowed to of course, do that directly because that's a shvuya gumos, right? Through out. But what she does is medicha kos kan. She washes a cup over here. And kara kan, a plate over here, tampui kan, a pot over here. Nimtzes marbet says base of Shabbos, and lo and behold, her house becomes fully cleaned down on Shabbos. Avo Meiser Sadmai was allowed to Meiser Dmai Erev Shabbos Bein Hashmoshos. We had an opinion yesterday that even on Shabbos, but certainly the Mishnah says Erev Shabbos Bein Hashmoshos during twilight. Rabbi Yossi B'Shem Rabbi Von Rabbi Chitzur B'Shem Rabbi Yidam Pazi said, what does the word Dmai mean? What's its etymology? We had this already in Zroim. Dmai Domitakein, Dmai Delotakein. In other words, do I know? Well, maybe I should read it like this. Demai, what is it? Is it already fixed up? Demai, what is it? The low tikin, or is it not fixed up? So demai is a question of, means domai. What do I know about this? And of course I don't know, and that's why I'm meiser misafik. You're allowed to make an eruv and do atmana erev Shabbos bein hashmashos. Rabbi Chia Rashi hoda temar beruvi chatzeros. That's only eruv chatzeros, meaning the eruv in order to carry within the confines of the wall. But by eruv tchumen, he holds you're not allowed to put it down. Bein hashmashos. Why? Because tchum dvar Torah. Tchum is dvar doraisa. Of course, only the tchum of 12 meal is doraisa, but nonetheless, since he holds 8 tchum is doraisa, therefore he's machmir. You can't put erev tchumen down after twilight begins. It has to be before twilight begins. Okay.
I just want to tell you.
Yes.
I see the Ridvaz says that this thing about Hariv Shemesh is mentioned in the Tosfos in Chagiga Daf Chof Aleph.
I didn't notice that Ridvaz. You're right.
Of course, he's not quoting a Gemara.
Yeah.
He's not quoting a Mishnayos or anything.
Right.
He has to stick to a Tosfos. That's
Well, we'll have to remember we get to Chagiga in a year, and the Yerushalmi will come out quicker. But in Bavli won't come out for a year, so we'll have to remember to look there. All right, on we go.
But the point
Yes.
is, if he has to resort to a Tosfos, it shows that
it's an obscure statement. That's true. That's really true.
Shows that Tosfos learned Yerushalmi.
Oh, sure. Tosfos goes to Yerushalmi several times. Yeah. Even Rashi does. Rashi seems to have less access, but he does quote from time to time. Okay. It says more Hajjalach by Membalikin. Kira. Now, fundamental thing to remember about the Bavli is that the Bavli did not have our kula. Our kula, of course, is to do. Well, actually, I don't know if that's true. I take that back. As I'm thinking, I'm not sure if I'm saying that. All right, scratch it. Just ignore what I just said. Just delete it from the record. Kira shizkua b'kasher gvava. Now, kira, of course, is a single box-like contraption which holds a pot on Shabbos, and you stoked it with straw or with hay. No, so you're allowed to put on it a cooked dish. If you stoked it, however, with gefes, which is peat, according to the Art Scroll in the Art Scroll translation, but it really isn't. It really is. Rashi, as the Korban Eda says here, it's it's sesame, discarded sesame seed, or discarded olives. So in any event, you can't, in that case, if that's used to stoke that kira, that particular type of oven, you may not put a cooked dish into it, until you scrape out the ashes, the coals, or until you cover them with ashes. Beishamai says, what can you leave there? Only hot water, but not cooked dishes. Hot water because it's mitzvah viralo, right? It gets worse as it stays on, but not cooked dishes. You're allowed to put on both hot water and cooked dishes. Beishamai says you may take off, but not return. You may also return stuff on top. Now, says the Gemara, Kini Masniso. This is the way to understand our Mishnah. We're not talking about putting stuff on Shabbos. That we're not talking about. We're talking about leaving on stuff from before Shabbos, as we know from Kira and the Bavli. Masniso Rabbi Yehuda. Our Mishnah is going like Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya we have Machlokas, and this too is brought down the Bavli. Kirain Matimos. You had a double Kira. In other words, one next to each other. Achas Grufa Ktuma. One of them is Goruf, the coals have been removed, and Kotum, whatever, or covered. V'achas Lo Grufa Lo Ktuma, and the other one is not. It has not had the coals removed, nor covered. Mekayim Al Grufa Ktuma, you may leave your pot on the side which has been either had the coals removed or covered. What may you leave on top of it? Now here's where the difference is from our Mishnah. This is not like our Mishnah. Can't leave anything on it whatsoever. Only chamin, only hot water, avalot tafshil, but not a cooked dish. And if you took off a pot, hakol moedim shelo yachzir, you may not put it back. That's all divrei Rabbi Meir. That's not like our Mishnah. Our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Meir, Beishami omrim chamin, you may leave on there hot water, avalot tafshil, not cooked dishes. Beishomrim chamin vit tafshil, you may leave on there chamin and hot water and tafshil and cooked dishes. And if you take off a pot, Beishami says you cannot put it back. Beisil says yachzir, they say you may put it back. Okay, so that's the end. The Brisa and our Mishnah obviously going like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Chelmon Ravan B'Shem Rav said, Lo shanu elo leho. You're only allowed to put a pot back on top, but not within the oven. Ad heichon, how far are you not allowed to put it back into the oven? Ulamar ad sholosh. Now ad sholosh, the Machlokas Bnei Moshe says you're allowed to put it in the oven, but only within the top third of the oven. Ad sholosh means like ad shlish, up to the top third, not in the bottom 2/3 of the oven. The Korban Eidah says that means up to within 3 tvachim of the ground. He repeats it anywhere in the airspace as long as it's not within 3 tvachim of the ground of the oven where it's particularly hot, because that's where the coals and everything were, right? Alright, so you can even put it further into the oven. You can put it down until a place where it makes a chritz. In other words, where you actually would make a furrow in the ashes by putting it down there. In other words, you can put it right above the ashes as long as you're not making a furrow in the ashes by putting it in, which I guess is similar to atmana, so then that would be also, right? That's brought down actually in Shulchan Aruch, to put something mamish on coals. You know what, I didn't realize it came from the Yerushalmi. Now I realize it comes from the Yerushalmi. To put something mamish on coals is considered to be atmana. Atmana normally we say is where you surround something with an insulating material, and it also has a heat source, right? Atmana b'davar amoisi favel is where it's surrounded in insulation. But here, even though it's not surrounded, even though it's only on the bottom, but if the pot is mamish touching the coals, that's considered to be atmana b'davar amoisi favel. And I think you see that here in the Yerushalmi. The ma'osa chritz. Also, chritz means it's also to put it in the oven in a place where it's going to make a furrow, an indentation in the coal, in the ashes. All right?
You're afraid it'll stir up the coals?
Yeah, you're afraid it might stir up the coals if you put it there. Right? Sure. Okay?
But getting it right close to
right close is okay.
That's they're not afraid about stirring up the coals?
No,
here?
as long as you're not putting it directly in. That's a hecker, because it's a hecker, because you're not putting it there. Bear in mind, the coals are covered. Yeah. The coals are covered. It is gar for kotum. Yeah. The question is, nonetheless, maybe putting it directly down on the coals defeats the covering. Yeah. Okay, whereas putting it somewhere above doesn't defeat the covering.
So if it's gar for kotum, how is it that's going to make a chritz?
Because gar for kotum just means there's a layer of ash on top of the coals. We're going to see the bottom of the page. Okay, that's really. I mean, that's not emphasized in the Bavli, but there are coals underneath the ash. There's that. There's just put the ash on top. Okay, now that's a Rabbi Yossi Mipnei Shu Sholit. Rabbi Yossi Rabun says it's where it's because, or meaning that you can put it into a place where it can be, you can have governance over it. What does that mean? Ad heichon shayat sholetes. Malachim shayat sholetes, to a place where your hand can still withstand the heat, which is a pretty big chumrah. You can't put it any lower than a place where your hand can withstand the heat. Okay, if it's a place where already you must pull your hand away, so then it's not good. You're not allowed to put it there on Shabbos. Not allowed to put it back on Shabbos. Now, the thing is yad sholetes bo. The clue you have at the bottom of the Chazon Sofer. Some of you have the Chazon Sofer. The yad sholetes bo is not, according to most Achronim, is not the same thing as Yad Sholetes bo, because I just translated that as different. Yad Sholetes bo is where your hand actually pulls back. Yad Sholetes bo is where your hand can withstand the heat, right? The problem is there's a Magen Avraham who equates Yad Sholetes bo and Yad Sholetes bo. Yeah. Yad Sholetes Bo, Yad Sholetes Bo. He equates it to, and that causes all sorts of problems in halacha. Because Magen Avraham has major chumras then, and says that a Kli Rishon, even if Yad Sholetes Bo, meaning even if it's not Yad Sholetes Bo, it still has the din of Kli Rishon. And it has something to do with this Yerushalmi. I don't know how the Magen Avraham exactly learns Yerushalmi. I just know that it comes from his interpretation of the Yerushalmi over here, that he equates Yad Sholetes Bo as being similar to Yad Sholetes Bo, and that really there, it's already considered a cook, and you have a problem of Kli Rishon, even it's only Yad Sholetes Bo, not Yad, whatever.
I would equate it also. You're just approaching it from different directions.
Well, the actual letters, but according to the Shach, who the other opinion is, obviously it's cooler. You can leave your hand there. Yatzos, but you have to draw your hand away.
Right.
So there has to be some difference in temperature.
Yeah.
Yatzos, but means your hand can stand it. Yatzos, but means you have to grab your hand away.
Right.
So there's a basic difference. All right. In any event, let's not get hung up on this. V'saya kai, and it's going like the Mar Rabbi Zira B'Sher Yehuda, mutar la'avshir b'mokom shayat sholetes bo. You're allowed to warm up something where if it's a place where yad sholetes. V'as la'avshir b'mokom she'ena yad sholetes. You're not allowed to warm something up in a place where Eina Yad Sholetes, where the hand cannot withstand the heat there. Okay, so this causes, again, I don't know exactly what Magen Avraham learns Yerushalmi, but he has all sorts of problems because of the way he learns his Yerushalmi over here. Rabbi Yosha Bar Gizura, Hava Mishamish Kumi Rabbi Zira. Rabbi Yosha Bar Gizura was serving in front of Rabbi Zira. And he brought in front of him boiling hot dishes. Amalei Hechavita. So Rabbi Zira said, how'd you get this out? It's Shabbos today. Amalei Grove Tufya. So he said, I raked away the ashes in the place where I left the pot. Tufya is the place where the pot sat. The Yagavah, put it immediately there on that hot spot in the oven. Amar Leise said, Lo Tiyovi, you shouldn't do that. Ela Grove Tufya, first remove the ashes, but Yoiv plus keep it, and then put 3 bundles of hay, Rami Alain, and put it on top of the bundles of hay. In other words, you can't have this hot food on Shabbos. It definitely can't be mutter. So therefore, you have to put down a chatzitza, a hefse, between the pot, the floor of the oven and the pot of 3 bundles of hay.
So this is the blech.
Yeah, but it's more than a blech, because it's gar for kotim. You say even though it's gar for kotim, still I want you to make a hefse on top of it. It's much more machmir.
But how was he able to rake away the ashes, even though it was gar?
He raked away before Shabbos, right?
Oh.
This lasted on. This was Friday night. Was Shabbos?
Friday night. I'm sure. Friday Shabbos morning would have cooled off. Okay. Rabbi Avo Hori v'Botzra. Rabbi Avo Paskin Botzra Memale Nitzro Ramach. You fill Ramach is like remetz, which is ashes. You fill up your gaitzer, I think it is gitzro, with Ramach. Umeitan klasa kapin, and you put 3 bundles of hay. Umirmin alain, you put it on top of that. Now, this is not clear exactly what it means. The Korban says it's a kula. That he allowed leaving actually hot coals in a pitcher or in a jug and putting the hay on top of that. So you actually were allowed, if you're using hay, you're actually allowed to leave coal directly underneath. Let's say, Mimali, you're allowed to fill up a jug full of coals and then put the 3 bundles of hay on top and then put your pot on top. It's Korban Eidah. So Bnei Moshe learns it's a chumrah. Bnei Moshe says people in Botzra were Amaratim. We know that from other places. And therefore they were more machmir there in Botzra because the people didn't know how to, distinguishing that which is mutter and aser. So therefore he held that it's he learns a memali not to ramach, means that on the floor of the oven you can't put the hay down directly. You have to first on the floor put a fistful of clay, and then on top of that put the hay, and only on top of that put the food. Okay, so he's more machmir. Okay.
It's like K'ter
Gabi. That's right. Daniel Breder of Kingdom Sheravatzi said, Shizrei Charoyos, the spines of palm trees. I don't know exactly what they are, but the spines of palm trees are like the more severe quality of the peat and the wood. However, that's only true where they were moist when they were harvested and then they dry because then they make good coals. But if while they were still on the tree, they shriveled up those branches, then they don't make good coals. They're just like the straw and the hay, and therefore it doesn't be gorfikotum. Gloli behema, what about animal excrement when it uses fuel, right? Fuel pellets. East tani kegevasaitim, they're those who it's like the peat and the wood. East tani kekash uchuvav, those who learn that it's the straw and the hay. Manamar kegevasaitim, you said it's like the peat and the wood bedaka. That's talking about sheep excrement. Mandamar who said that it's kekash kegvava, that it's like like the straw and the hay, the lesser madrega, that's begasa, a cow's excrement. And I guess that's less efficient fuel than sheep excrement. That's what it says here. All right? Not asking you to go find out. Hagoref, now when you remove the coals, achigo kol tzarko, you have to remove all the coals. Mimadatani, how do we know this? Now, which it says, Hagoref tzarech l'chatek biyad, the Goref has to, the Ransgir says, l'tatet, he has to sweep it out or check it out, make sure everything is removed. The Amara, from this we derive, achigo kol tzarko, until you remove all the coals. Ha-koitem, somebody who covers achi-ikton kol tzarko, is it also until you cover, do all that's the entire thing? No. Mimadatani melabe love ne'or shapishton. It says that how do you do kitma? How do you do kukatu? You put on a layer of fine fluff of linen, and that singes, and that becomes your katu. Okay, so it actually is a layer of ash above the coals. So Hadam Rafi Kolokata called circle, obviously you're not fully covering it because the ash is a very fine cover to the coals, right? So there you don't need a full, true cover, you need just a symbolic cover. Okay? So to remove the coals, you have to remove them all literally. To cover them, you just have to cover them symbolically. Okay?
Isn't that linen going to burn up? Because the coals are still warm.
It's going to burn, it's going to form ash. That's the covering. The ash is core forms. Yeah. Okay, Amad Beis. Vaida Amrada, and what tells us this? I have a parallel case which indicates this principle. Yontav Shchalios Erev Shabbos, when Yontav comes on Erev Shabbos, Amar Rabbi Shane, the Shane Rebbe said, Melabo land or a Shopishtan. You're allowed to, because that day you can't be goref because, I guess because of muktzah. I don't know why you can't be goref exactly. Rashi said, the Korban says, you're not allowed to be goref because you're going to come like shvui gumos. It's going to smooth out the floor of your oven, right? So in that, on that day, when it comes Yontav, which comes to Erev Shabbos, Melabo love Norish Pishtan. You're allowed to do kitma just by putting on this fine layer of ash. What about kitma v'nis labis? Mao. What about if you did kitum, your katma, but before Shabbos it became a flame again? In other words, the heat was so intense it overcame the ash on top of it. It says when Bechia Ruba Allah, the base of Bechia was the great, came to his house. I guess I had a mice like this. Vahori mutter, and he said it's okay. You can do that. You can then give it the status of kotum, even though it has a good fire in there, because you did what you had to do.
And you did it on Yontav, which...
No, there's not any Yontav anymore.
It's Shabbos.
Lav dafka. It can be even on Erev Shabbos. Bon kumi Rabbi Zira, Rabbi Yoshua, Rabbi Chanina. Charmein the Rabbanan. So the Talmid Beis Medrash asked in front of Rabbi Zira, and Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Chanina were the friends of the rabbis, meaning they were the higher echelon of scholars. Liba l'shavar. When you it's liba l'shavar. Maybe liba, maybe it works. Maybe only it's b'di'evet, meaning say on Shabbos it took flame again, so then you're allowed to still do chazorah. Or if you didn't realize it and you had a pot there from before Shabbos, okay, but Erev Shabbos, if this happens to you before Shabbos, you have enough time to be kotem again. Can rely on this? In other words, after it seized flame again, you can rely on the fact you did it once. Is that sufficient?
So liba l'shavar. Maybe it only works l'shavar, meaning b'di'evet. Does it also work l'chatchila? So this is the question they asked. This is B'nai Beis Medrash, Rabbi Zir, Rabbi Yoshi, Rabbi Chanina. Before they're able to get an answer, Ava Rabbi Ami passed by, Vidru Chavar, and everybody dispersed. I guess they're afraid of Rabbi Ami, so they didn't stick around. Bon Chazralin. Okay, so once Rabbi Ami passed, they wanted to come back and ask the question again. So it says the Gemara, Amar alone, Rabbi Chanina, Chavrei and the Rabbanan. So Rabbi Chanina was one of the ones they wanted to ask again. He said no. I mean, the have uvda, have the uvda. Once the ma'isa occurred, the ma'isa occurred. Meaning, you wanted to ask me a question to get me to answer it, l'chatchila, and only be matir b'di'evet. Can't do it, too late. Once there was like a sivan min hashamayim. Once you asked and I wasn't able to answer at that point, that's it. Even now that you want to reconvene, too bad. Okay? So,
What day is Rabbi Ami?
I don't know. I guess you're afraid of it. Okay. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Susratye, or Shmuel Bar Susratye said, the next word, the Mashbiach changes to Lanon, which means to us, Lanu, right? Lanon, for us, Tzricha Liba. We have to ask the question. Lamaisa, what can we do, right? Do we rely on doing it l'chatchila only b'di'evet? Ramon said, Ona kashi I say kumi Rabbi Ba Brady Rapapi. I asked for Rabba, the son of Rapapi. In Taimel Shavar. Do we say that it's mutter b'di'evet, meaning do we allow it? Do we allow this case of putting stuff on it once it's been once it's been flared up, even l'chatchila, only b'di'evet? What's the status? So it says the Gemara, afilu lo bishel aleh. I'm sorry. Is that what I'm up to? Did I skip? Yeah. It says afilu lo bishel aleh bitchila. Says when I answer him, yeah. Even if you did. No, I stopped in the middle of the line. It's all part of the question. Rabbi Bob Brader probably said, "Intem l'shavar afilu lo bishel aleh bitchila." I'm still not sure where the question ends.
The dots are misleading.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all part of the question, right? So in that case, if you say it's okay, at least b'di'evet, right? So it means even if, let's say, hypothetically speaking, even if you cook it all before Shabbos, should be okay. Because what does that mean? It means that as long as you did kitma, so that's considered to be, even if it flares up afterwards, you did your part, right? So if it flared up, even if you had a raw pot on there, you should be allowed now to leave it to cook. Now let's clarify this a little bit. We paskin halacha l'maisa, if you have a raw pot, you put on right before Shabbos, that's okay. So as you don't do chazara, right? As long as you have a blech. As long as you have a blech. And you can put it on right before Shabbos, okay? So the shaila is, what about if you had a blech and it flared up? Can you leave it on there now? Since you did your thing before. That's his question, right? Now, if it flared up now, to put it on now, he's not asking. That you can't allow him to do. Of course not, because then, now it's already a full-fledged fire. To put something on now would be l'chatchila, right? You can't do that. The shaila is, can you leave it on there? Now, Rabbi Chia before was matir, but it could be Rabbi Chia was only matir in a case where it was already on the fire. He didn't require you to take it off and do kitma again, right? The our shaila is like this. I'm sorry. It could be he was matir in a case where it was already cooked. It was already cooked. He said he can leave it on, right? It's not gar for katum. It doesn't matter. It's already cooked, and you did do gar for katum. You can leave it on now. Our shaila is, what happens if it flared up before Shabbos, and then you want to put now a raw pot on it, which is almost tantamount to putting on an open flame, right before Shabbos. So it's a mutter also. So that's Mar's question now. Okay.
Is there a time frame here where you have enough time to fix it? Where everyone agrees that there's no time?
Seems like there is enough time.
There is
Yeah.
And you still don't have to.
Right, that's our shiloh. In other words, Rabbi Chila's matir was already cooked, and he was leaving it on. Our shiloh is not already cooked, and can he put it on? Right, after it flared up again. Okay? So is that okay or not okay, right? Again, right, let's say it happened already, right? Can you put something on it even if it's not yet cooked? Right? The Tani, and why should be mutter? Because we learned that Hamaiser v'Hamavashel b'Shabbos. We have a machlokas where you cook on Shabbos with your hands. So would you put the pot down on the fire? Actually, if you didn't unintentionally eat it, B'Mezid, if you didn't intentionally, very famous machlokas, you had it many times already. Lo yochal, you're not allowed to eat it. Divrei Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer shogeg yochal motzei Shabbos. If you did shogeg unintentionally, you can't eat motzei Shabbos. Meiz, if you did intentionally, lo yochal, you can't eat it ever. Yochanan San Lamar shogeg yochal motzei Shabbos. Even shogeg, you only eat it motzei Shabbos la'achem. Others, v'lo lo, not you yourself. Mezid, if you do a mezid, lo lo, v'lo la'achem, you're not allowed to do it you're not allowed to eat it neither you nor others. Now, said this is all part of the question really. Till here. The question is, perhaps it's only where you're mevashel on Shabbos. But in the case you left it on from before Shabbos, perhaps that's okay. Or maybe not. Maybe just like there goes around Shabbos, it goes before Shabbos. Right? Once it flared up, you got a problem. The Gemara never answers the question. That's the end of the sugya. Now we go on, once we're on a tangent, we continue on that tangent. Okay? The bottom line is that we're matir. The Bavli's matir. Kut kitma v'huvara. So the Bavli says you're allowed to leave stuff on there. But I don't remember the Bavli says you can put then stuff on it. I don't think the Bavli addresses this question of whether, okay, now kitma v'huvara, let me put stuff on l'chatchila even though before Shabbos in order to cook. I don't think the Bavli says anything about that. Okay, Shmuel Rabbi Yochanan ben Sadler. Shmuel held Rabbi Yochanan Sadler that if you did it b'mezid, it's also for everybody forever. And even if you did b'shogeg, it's still only mutter to other people. Motzei Shabbos, not to you. Rav can have a mori b'chavus, a very famous Rav. It's brought down the Bavli in Chulin. Rav, when you paskin in public, have on my Meir, paskin like Rabbi Meir, which is. Well, I'm sorry, paskin b'chavus means b'chaburase. In his own group of students in private, he paskin Rabbi Meir, which is the most cooler dekashita. That b'shogi, even you can eat it, right? But Tzipura, when you pass in public, I have a more Rabbi Yochanan like the Rabbi Yochanan Sandler, that even Meshoge, you can never eat it, only others, and so on and so forth. Why? Because of the Tzipura, we didn't want to be makel for them too much. Give them a finger next to one, an arm, it's unacceptable. We can't give them so many cools. Okay? I'm Rabbi Shimon Bar Karsno, Kishuk Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi Dorish Lord. Rabbi Shimon Bar Karsno said he went even a step further. He passed with them like Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi. What's our Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi? Super duper machmir. Chumras are not a new phenomenon. The time Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi, I remember Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi, and famous for Rabbi Aviv. Kol davar shiz doinel kores. Anything which if you do b'mezi you get kores. V'ashkos achatos, if you do b'shor you get a chatos. So, and he did it on Shabbos, bein meshogeg, bein memezid, whether it's meshogeg or memezid, also. It remains usher. Bein lo, both for him, bein lechem, and other people as well. That's it. Kol davar she'echav, so kores v'ashkos achatos, so Shabbos. Anything which you're not chayiv, if you do b'mezid, kores. And if they're b'shogeg chayiv chatos, again, such as this is the Rabbanan. So on shogeg, if you did it on Shabbos or shogeg, yochel motzei Shabbos la'achem v'lo lo. Then motzei Shabbos. You can eat, others can eat it, but not you. Mazid, if you did a mazid, lo lo v'la'achem. So basically, he takes Rabbi Yochanan Sandler's approach and applies that to the Rabbanans. But the rights does not make it for anybody, anytime, anywhere, under any circumstances. Okay? Bon kumei Rabbi Yochanan. They asked Rabbi Yochanan, Atma Omar, what do you paskin? So Omar alone, they said them, Ani ein li ela Mishnah. I don't know any chochmas. I paskin like the Mishnah. The Mishnah is like Rabbi Meir. What does the Mishnah say? Ha-meiser, ha-mevashel b'Shabbos. If somebody takes a meiser, cooks on Shabbos, shogeg yochal, if he did it unintentionally, eats it, mezid lo yochal. So we see that anytime there's a shogeg, even he is allowed to eat himself. Okay? Shamar Rav Chisra, the Rabbi Yochanan Paskin this way l'kula, Umar, and he said, Huchu Shabbosos. You made Shabbos mutter to be Mechal Shabbos by giving such a big kula. You can't give such a big kula. Rav Chuna b'shem Rav, V'tani Rabbi Chia came. Rav Chuna said the name of Rav, and Rabbi Chia, we also know that's the name of Rabbi Chia in a brisa. But Rishoni Army originally used to say, Hashocher Tav Shel, somebody forgot a dish, Agabe Kira, on top of the stove. The Kitchulav as a Shabbos, and now became Shabbos. Shogeg Yocha Meisel Yocha. If he did it unintentionally, he can eat it. If he did it intentionally, he cannot eat it, like Ray Meir. Next, Julios Menichem Mezidim. The problem is that people started leaving stuff on Erev Shabbos. B'mezid, right before Shkia. V'am, when they said, Shchechem, we forgot. Ha ha. Then, they asked it even in a case where a person forgot. Right? Even a person just forgot to take off before Shabbos. And if that's the case, says the Gemara, I have a kasha. How could Rabbi Yochanan be Mekel? Right? If we are going to Shogeg Atu Meizid, how could Rabbi Yochanan say, we're not going to on Shogeg? Rabbi said, I'll tell you. Next Julios Menichin, below next Julios Mevashli. The reason why they made Gzera by a shocher tav shel gabe kira, something you forgot from before Shabbos, a cooked dish on top of the stove. By him they're a maker. Why? Because people are suspect. By them they're a machmir. Because by people are suspect, leave stuff from before Shabbos on the stove. And say we did it unintentionally when they did it intentionally. Why? Because it's not at the rice anyway, right? Because you're putting it on the stove from before Shabbos. The rice is only putting it on Shabbos. However, so therefore there we have to make a gzera. There are choishes that people are going to lie about that, right? However, for lo nechshadul dios mevashlim, people are not suspect to actually cook on Shabbos. That people wouldn't do. And therefore, konsu b'meiniach, they made a knas on the shogeg. They find a guy who did it b'shogeg. We left from before Shabbos, where people are suspect to bend the rules. Lo konsu mevashel, they didn't make a fine where a person actually cooked on Shabbos. That you cook b'shogeg shpioser, because the person would never do that intentionally, and therefore we don't have to make gzer unless the person come to do that. Okay? Chazul Omar. They came back to say, you know what? A general principle. This is going on the brisa before, which says that there are kones, that they made a knas, so that's only they said if you leave stuff on the fire unintentionally, and it's stuff which improves with the time it's spent on the fire, so then it's asur. You have to asur it. If it's something which deteriorates the more it stays on the fire, so then mitzdamek v'ralo is mutter, right? You're allowed to use it on Shabbos, even though you put it on up before Shabbos in a way which is improper. Okay, if you did it amazing in a way which is improper. Ezu tavshu mitzdamek v'yafalo. I don't know if it's amazing. Did it b'shogeg. What's a dish which improves with the time it's spent on the fire? Kigon akruv, cabbage, vafunim, and peas, ubasar, and meat, toruf, mixed together. This is an early version of cholent. Right? It gets better. I'm right. If you put your turnips, roshe kaflutos, and I forget what kaflutos are. It's some other form of that kind of vegetable which they had in Bavel. So those cases also sunk in tafshushim mitzdamek v'yafalo. That's like chulin. It gets better over time. And therefore, you left it right before Shabbos on the fire. Even in b'shogeg, we find you because that's mitzdamek v'yafalo. Beitzim mayim. What's the status of eggs which are overly long cooked? Right, we know the Sephardim put eggs in their cholent. Of course, it comes from here, right? Beitzim mao. What's their status over time? They mitzdamek v'yafalo, mitzdamek v'ralo. Rabbi Yossi, Shem Rishmo, Rabbi Yossi said, Abba Allah, my father, Rabbi Yossi, went to his house. Umatzah sham chamin v'yitir. He found hot water which is left on unintentionally before Shabbos, and he permitted it. Why? Because it's mitzdamek v'ralo. It gets worse. You lose more over time. Beitzim, he found eggs, right, which were left on from before Shabbos to cook, Vasar, and he forbade them. Why? Because they're mitzdamek v'yofelo. They get better with age. Or Rabbi Shmuel bar Nosson b'Shem Echad. And Chananya said, Ani v'Abba, I'll tell you a ma'aseh like that. I and Tati, Alinu l'chamas goder. We went to the chamas goder place. They brought us small eggs, chuzdarim, like little berries. The time in Yavka Pankserin, but the taste was like the most delicate food, the greatest delicacies. They didn't have, Illinois nut and chocolates back then, so they ate eggs. They ate cooked eggs. Those are their what? Nor liver pate. Okay. All right, Tani. So eggs are mistamik v'yafil. They get better over time. They get smaller, but they get better. Tani. Lo tamali isha kedero. One should not full. A pot full of asocios with turmacine. These are legumes. The team will put them in her stove or her oven. Erev Shabbos simcha shecha, because obviously intended to cook on Shabbos, right? And it's aroma nikeres. It's obvious. He knows that if she did it, Motzoi Shabbos is written because she asu. Motzoi Shabbos, she got to wait. But even not allowed to eat on Shabbos, obviously. Even Motzoi Shabbos, got to wait the amount of time which it would take to cook this dish Motzoi Shabbos. Okay. Rabbi Yachom, what?
What's this time? You put this on before Shabbos?
Right.
You need to drink Shabbos?
Right. Because Achomar b'mezid kramer. This case say about b'mezid where the women did it intentionally. It's going like kramer. Wasser. Rabbi Yossi b'shoyik Rabbi Yehuda. Even going like Rabbi Yossi, we did it b'shogeg. Remember, like Rabbi Yehuda. I'm sorry. Rabbi Yossi b'shoyik Rabbi Yehuda. Like Rabbi Yehuda asked us when he did it b'shogeg. Right? He says, I did the right pleasure to Motzei Shabbos by shogeg. Our Ramana said, Yossi Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said a good spot. It makes sense. It works. Because he learned Hanoteh b'Shabbos. If you plant the tree on Shabbos, shogeg, if you did it unintentionally, you can leave it in the ground. Maize, if you did it intentionally, right? You knew it was Shabbos. Yakor, you have to uproot it. Ubishvius, by Shemitah. Bein b'shogeg, bein b'meizid yakor. Whether you did it, planted the tree intentionally, unintentionally, you got to uproot it. Rabbi Yehuda says the exact opposite. Hanoteh b'Shabbos, somebody planted on Shabbos, bein b'shogeg, bein b'meizid yakor. Whether he did it unintentionally, intentionally, he's got to uproot it. Uvishvius, if it's Shemitah, shogeg, if he did it unintentionally, he's got to maintain it. He may maintain it. Umeited Yaakov, if he did it amazing, he's got to uproot it. Lama. Why? So Rabbi Yehuda is L'shitas, it's consistent. He says on Shabbos, where he did a shogeg amazing, you have to uproot it. Why? Shanoya Shabbos Olav. You're not allowed to derive benefit of having planted on Shabbos. That's awesome. So the special Xeris HaKos, you're not allowed to derive benefit from that which is planted on Shabbos. Where that which Melech was done on Shabbos. Now, Vikan, now by Shemitah. Oh no, I'm sorry. Because Vikan is still part of Shabbos. Vikan became a Shatomer Yamti Motzoi Shabbos, where Kadesh Yasu wants to tell me has to wait Motzoi Shabbos until such time would have lapsed as would have taken to make it from scratch. Shalom enemy, that's good. Because that takes him away of all the pleasure of Shabbos, right? Because the pleasure of Shabbos was the savings of time. He didn't have savings of time. We socked it to him. He's got to wait Motzoi Shabbos. Now time would take it to make it dead. Okay? However, that's like Rabbi Yehuda. Now, getting back to what we said before, now it makes sense to say that's Gemara is trying to prove why the previous case could have been Rabbi Yehuda, where the woman put on Erev Shabbos, even b'shogeg, we don't let her eat till Motzei Shabbos, because Rabbi Yehuda holds that non-Shabbos is also. It's not because of the Rabbanan. I take that back. Rabbi Yochanan founder holds it to the Raisa. But going to be to the Rabbanan. But the Rabbanan says not to have benefit from Shabbos. So wait till after Shabbos will be Chdesh Yasu. Okay, now once on a tangent, let's go on with that tangent. Ma Tami the Rabbanan. What's the logical Rabbanan who say that if you plant on Shabbos, b'shogeg, you can leave it there. By Shemitah, even if you plant b'shogeg, you may not leave it there. Why? Next to do all shvius. Because Rabbanan hold where we suspect people transgress shvius. And therefore, a person is going to come and say, oh no, I was a shogeg, I wasn't amazing. So therefore we make him uprooted even if it was a shogeg. But people are not choshesh to be Mechal Shabbos, so severe in everybody's eyes. So therefore we don't have to check out its tzitzis on that.
Could you also say it's a bar side the shiur on your shoes?
Another interpretation. Moinim l'shvius, ve'monim l'shabbosos. People say, hey, that's a great tree. When was that tree planted? 3 years ago, right? 4 years ago, because now he's using the fruit, right? 4 years ago, that was Shemitah. Must be it's worth it to plant during Shemitah. So afraid people are going to count back the Shemitah. But ain't money in the Shabbos. People can't count back the Shabbos. You never count what day a tree was planted, only what year a tree was planted. Hey Chavida. So it says more, give me an afkamina. What's the difference whether it's because of chashad, because people are suspect to plant b'mezid and claim it was shoygeg, or where people we're afraid other people are going to come back, what you called Marasayan, and figure out that it was planted in Shemitah, say Shemitah's mutter. So I'll give you a few examples together with a few typos. Hey Ravina, what's the case? You plant less than 30 days before Shemitah begins. And then Shemitah began. If you're afraid of people are going to trick up and trick and say, oh no, I did a shogeg, I didn't do amazing, right? That's not going to happen in this case. Why? Because you're allowed to plant up to Rosh Hashanah of Shemitah. I mean, you weren't at one time Chazal asked it, but then they were matir again because this man is a Shemitah's drabanan, so they're allowed to do it, right? However, in Tamar Minyan, if you're afraid people are going to come back and say you're going to plant during Shemitah, first typo number 1, Yesh Kan Minyan. Even though you planted at a time when it's technically mutter, but what are they going to see 4 years later? A fully blossoming tree being harvested. They're not going to know you planted Erev Shemitah. They won't be able to distinguish whether it was a day before Rosh Hashanah, a day after Rosh Hashanah. They'll count back, and what will they come to conclusion? Planted during Shemitah. People might come to plant during Shemitah as a result. So now that's in the case where there's a distinction where we learn the problem is because of minyan or because of chashad, because people are suspected to trick, or because people are going to come back retroactively. Another difference. Not shminis. You planted during Shemitah, but less than 30 days before the end of the year. Okay, so in Tamar b'chashad, if you're going to say suspicion, yesh kan chashad, right? It's tak Shemitah. If you let it go b'shogeg, a whole bunch of people are going to do b'meiz and say, no, ich bin ha'shoygeg, right? However, in Tamar minyan, if you're going to say people are going to count back, then it should, another typo, ain't kan minyan. There's no problem minyan. Because people are count, so again, here since they're counting not exactly, here it comes out of kula. Because they'll think it was planted when? During the 8th year. Okay? V'sayo commando amar, and this is going according to the opinion which holds, mipnei haminyan. Okay, it's a typo again. Okay, this is going according to Commando amar, that's mipnei haminyan. Right? What meaning? If the issue was of counting back, then there's a reason because the shogeg got to mazid, right? Because whoever looks is not going to know whether the shogeg or mazid, right? So they're going to count back. They're going to say it was during Shemitah. So they don't know shogeg mazid. They just derive you can plant during Shemitah. But because of the reason that people are going to be that people are suspect to lie. He would say in that case is it necessary to be konei shogeg to mazid, necessary to say if you did a shogeg we still make you as if you're a mazid. Why? Perhaps not. Perhaps it's not a problem because the truth is the truth is that we asked when we asked shogeg got to mazid, we asked even for other people, right? We asked that anybody can't eat if you were shogeg, right? Not just you yourself. So I understand you can ask for the guy himself, but what did anybody else do? They're also suspect, right? The case we're talking about is the case where the woman put the stuff in the oven. That was the case where we started. And we said that's also Motzei Shabbos Chdei Shiyasu. What's Motzei Shabbos Chdei Shiyasu both for the woman and for anybody else? Similarly, the Shemitah case, which we're bringing in reference to that, when it says Konsu Sholi Yatu Meis, it is talking about, we assume, you find everybody. So the question is, why should we say that? If you're going to say the issue is Chashad, then maybe a guy's going to lie and plant b'mezid and say it was b'shogeg. That's only for him himself. But for everybody else going to ask it as well, why should he ask to show you amazing for everybody else? If it's because of minyan, so that's marithayin, so people won't be able to tell, so then I understand why he asked her and everybody else. But it's because of chashad, so that this guy who plants b'shogeg might be lying and might come to plant b'mezid, that's fine to ask for him, but why do you ask for anybody else? More doesn't answer. What?
This is a shot for everybody else too. Maybe they were in cahoots with the person.
It's possible. I'm not saying there is no issue here, but the Gemara doesn't answer. Okay, not to me, but you took off a pot from the fire frame before Shabbos began. Machzir me bod yom. You can put it back before Shabbos begins. Right, Chazor? Not me shchashech. What if you took it out before Shabbos, after Shabbos? Machzir me shchashech. Put it back after Shabbos begins. What about not me bod yom? You took it off the fire before Lich Bench. The Kiddush Levin Yom, and now you're holding it in your hand as you bench Lichter as the sun went down. Can you put it back on the fire? Guess what the Gemara answers? No answer. Very good. Yeah. See, you got Yerushalmi down pat. Rabbi Simon, the Datre, some name. Shem Rabbi Yeshua said, "Hinichu baretz also tatlu." As we know from the Bavli, once you put it on the ground, you're not allowed to put it back up. Right? Also, tatlu means you can't put it back on. Rabbi Lezer Shem Rabbi Yeshua said, "Mishori Saisi, I was a shamish, as Rabbi Chia Godel. Vaisi malo chamin, and I used to bring him hot water, midyute tachtoine, from the lower floor, lidyute yoine, to the higher floor, to the second floor, the masrin lakir. Nonetheless, you're allowed to put it back on the stove. In other words, even though it takes a long time to get it from the first floor to the second floor, you're still allowed to put it back on the stove. Rabbi Shimon, even if it was on a stove with less heat, you're still allowed to put it on the kirush shahavla meruba onto a stove with more heat. You're just like allowed to move on a blech from one spot on the blech to the other, so you're allowed to put from a smaller heat on a higher heat. Okay? Same talocha. Rabbi Ami said, wait a minute. Zimni tzagin, Yasvis Kami, Rabbi Yeshua. I said many times for Rabbi Yeshua, Flo Shabbos Minat Mils. I never heard this from him. Rabbi Zira said, Rabbi Zikin, Rabbi Zira. Rabbi Zikin said to Rabbi Zira, he was made a snide comment about Rabbi Ami. He said, Lo Shmiya Minei Mutter. They didn't hear that it's mutter, but Shema Mino Aser. Did he hear from him that it's Aser? Well, it's okay. So never it's mutter. So does that mean automatically it's Aser? Give me a break. Totally be said. What if you didn't put it down on the ground, but you hung the pot on a peg, or Nosal Gabi Safsel, or you put it on top of a bench? If it's still boiling, mutter, you're still allowed to put it back. And if not, also you're not allowed to put it back on the fire. We matter this b'di'evet, but not l'chatchila, right? If you put it down, so in the b'di'evet you can put it back, but as long as it's still hot, but not if l'chatchila you're not supposed to do that. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Maria, b'shalo heavier siyadim imeno. You know when it's l'chatchila, even if you put it down, if you kept your hand on it. If you took your hand off, it's also. So this mice we do paskin that you can put it back, even if you put it down on a bench or on a peg, as long as you kept your hand on it. Then chazor is mutter. But once you took your hand off, so it's only you b'di'evet to put it back. Not supposed to. Yerushalmi says outright it's also. We'll stop here for this evening.